Greetings. My name is Paul Cienfuegos, and I am a regional leader in the community rights movement in the United States. The community rights movement has been building for about a decade in this country, and it's a movement of communities both conservative and progressive. It's very non-ideological. In fact, conservatives are leading this movement so far. It's a movement that has found a very interesting new cultural and legal strategy to build from the bottom up, from the local level up towards state legal change and federal legal change, new legal structures of law that rein in corporate power. And the root of corporate power is corporate constitutional rights, which most people call corporate personhood. But corporate constitutional rights is actually a more accurate and comprehensive frame of the problem that gives corporations so much control over us. So if you're a single issue activist, as many of us are, and you're battling against the healthcare crisis in this country, trying to get universal health care, or you're battling against fracking, or you're battling against the natural gas pipeline or the tar sands pipeline, or you're battling against corporations that want to move living wage jobs to slave wage factories overseas, or you're battling the privatization of your local water utility or your local electric company. For a century now, we the people have been battling one corporate harm at a time, uniquely and in a very conventional and pretty much powerless and ineffective way, mostly through the regulatory system, mostly through protesting, demanding, begging, rallying, etc. There's a much more powerful way to deal with this. But to understand that powerful way, you have to understand that all of those corporate harms are merely symptoms of we the people allowing corporations to exercise corporate constitutional rights. They have been winning corporate rights for 2 centuries, almost entirely through the U.S. Supreme Court. Hundreds and hundreds of decisions. There is a movement in this country that's been building for the last decade. 150 communities in 8 states and climbing, almost entirely East Coast, but starting to be West Coast also, are starting to pass legally binding, locally enforceable laws that rein in corporate constitutional rights, in fact, that prohibit corporations from exercising any of their constitutional rights, their free speech rights, their property rights, their contract rights, their search and seizure rights, etc., their judicial rights. Every one of these 150 ordinances strips corporations of their constitutional rights, elevates the rights of the community, the majority, not individual rights, but community rights, above the so-called rights of the corporation, and bans all sorts of these single-issue corporate harms, which are normal and legal at the state level, but frankly, they're terrible, they're destructive, and they need to be ended. And we Americans, across the political spectrum, we understand that we're in an emergency situation in the United States. We understand we're in an ecological crisis, an economic crisis, a social crisis, and that the kind of activism that we've been doing for pretty much a century is not working. More and more single-issue groups, but the situation in all of those capacities keeps getting worse. I want to urge you to consider getting involved in the community rights movement. The frame is community rights versus corporate rights. And the idea is that your community can identify the corporate harms that need to be challenged and stopped, not through begging and pleading, but through passing locally enforceable laws at the city or town or county level that do all of these extraordinary things in a single law that you can pass through the ballot box or through an elected official's vote. So I want to urge you to consider getting involved in this movement. My name again is Paul Cienfuegos. I'm a leading organizer on the West Coast in this movement. I have a website, paulcienfuegos.com. I have an email address, paul@100fires, that's 100fires.com. You can sign up for my blog. I do online or teleconference workshops that you can sign up for on my website. You can email me questions. I'm part of a national movement, and I really want to hear from you. We're in an urgent situation in this country, whether your issues are ecological, social, labor issues, it doesn't matter. Usually at the heart, we can't get what we the people need because of a primary barrier, and that's corporate power, which comes from corporations exercising their judicially won constitutional rights. We found a legal strategy that we believe works. 150 towns have stopped corporate harm already. We need you to get involved. I urge you to get in touch. Thank you very much.